Good evening, everyone. I'm Molly. I'm the Executive Director here at the RAL National Association. Most of you know who I am, but if you don't, hello, nice to meet you. I am here with Kevin and Brian today. They are with the Bridgewater Group, and they are a new national general contractor that I am working with. We've been looking for a construction group to really give you guys the inside scoop on their experience for a while now. And when Brian reached out to me, it was the perfect opportunity for us to share this information with you, because this is a huge part of building your projects, is finding the right general contractor. So I have a couple of little things for you guys. Over on the right-hand side in your control panel is a questions tab. If you have any issues throughout the presentation, you can't see, you can't hear, I will try and navigate you through those issues in that questions tab. So you can type it in there and I'll type directly back to you. As we get towards the end, which I believe this presentation is probably only going to be 15 or 20 minutes long, and then we'll take questions after that. You can type your questions in there, and then Brian is going to come in at the end and help answer any of those questions you guys may have. So there is also a brochure in the handouts tab. So underneath the questions tab down at the bottom, there is a handouts tab. You can click on that brochure and you can download it onto your computer to save for later. So that's a little gift for you guys. And otherwise, that's it. So Kevin, I'm going to hand things over to you, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Molly, for having us. Good afternoon, everybody. I know you guys, I can't hear you. You guys can hopefully hear me. My name is Kevin. I'm president of Bridgewater General Contracting, and just wanted to say thank you guys for being here. Today, we're going to go over a few things about our company partnership with RAL and tips for finding the right general contractor. But first, we're going to go into a little bit about ourselves. We're a licensed and bonded general contractor and construction management firm. We have a national presence, meaning we work from coast to coast and licensing. Our primarily focus is commercial, medical, retail, and residential. That includes assisted living, whether it be commercial or residential. I'll show you a bigger project later on that we did that consisted of 100,000 square feet, but it was still considered residential. We have 100 years experience, and we're based out of Illinois with a heavy Midwest presence. One of the things we do is remodel, retrofit, and new builds, and those are our typical projects. And those are taking 4,000 to 5,000 square foot house and making it into an 8 to 10 bedroom residential assisted living space with each individual state's specific bathrooms and ADA requirements. One of the other things we do is project consulting. We can take a look at a project, produce budgets on a case-by-case basis to make sure that the house has the bones able to renovate the RAL project. We want to make sure that budgets are met so that the client can actually proceed with the project. Sometimes we may go back and forth with a client and actually find out that the plot of land or house that they found isn't able to be used in this certain instance. And so we would rather know that up front. The other thing we can do is project management. We oversee the construction and renovation of the said project. The other thing we can do is the construction management, where we actually get hired to go out and search for the general contractor and kind of act as a liaison between ownership and the general contractor and subs. And this way we can kind of procure and look at insurances and make sure that things are working and in good working order from start to project to finish. So that's a little bit of what we do and how we go about doing it. Our experience in this space, our team members have over 100 years experience in construction, project management. In the estimating, we've got 40 years with project values up to 10 million. I do go a little bit further into that. We've done an $18 million project, but we'll get to that. Our field staff, between our foremen and superintendents, have over 50 years experience, and our office staff has over 40 years, and that's dealing with contracts and insurances like I had mentioned. Our typical project types are assisted living, commercial renovations, food industry, and retail. And then the last thing on our experience, the customer service, and that's why I'm out front doing this webinar, is because I'm the point man on these things. If there's ever an issue, I like to be the one to kind of get in there, get my hands dirty, and help out wherever I can. So that's one of the things that I take very serious is the customer service in this space. So wanted to go to some projects completed and give you guys an idea of the scope of projects that we do. Like I made mention before, these could be houses ranging from 3,200 square feet to 5,000 square feet on your typical residential space. But if we take a look at the project on the left, it is a 110,000 square foot assisted living facility. I think it's 134 beds when you combine the memory care for it. This was a 2-year build from 2016 to 2018 that we had taken on. This project was right around the $18 million mark, and we took over project management for it. We did the core and shell and all of the carpentry. So that's something else that we kind of have in our toolkit, is that we have a facility management company and a carpentry company that can help our general contracting company be all under one roof. We still will go for subs as far as mechanicals, electrical, and plumbing, which are another big facet of the general contracting. But we do have the carpenters in-house. The project on the right was a collection of about 12 assisted living facilities that we had came in to do refreshes on. And we've got another, I would say, 20 to 30 in the pipeline. They obviously got pushed off for COVID, but we've got some in the pipeline. But we were brought in to do refreshes because every 6 to 8 years, depending on public health standards, they've got to bring these things up to certain state and national standards. You guys will eventually, get into that for your own facilities, but this is just, some of the things that we do. These are just exterior shots. Sometimes we couldn't get into them because they are they are going through COVID right now, so we had to deal with exterior shots that we didn't have any interiors on right now. So here are some interiors that we've done. This was a garment and press manufacturing company, and their colors were black and red, and they wanted to kind of go with a little bit of that schematic. So we decided to, take the design process on, and this is, one of our interiors that we had done. This was a really, really fun project. This next project was a school, and again, we just kind of wanted to show off the creativity of the interior. And so this was a 2,500 square foot addition to an elementary school, and excuse me, we demoed the entire place, reframed it, drywalled it, and brought this HVAC system in. And I just thought it was a really good showcase of our interior skills that we weren't able to show on when I was showing you guys the buildings. So, all right, so now let's kind of get into the reason why you guys are all here. Tips for finding the right general contractor. I think one of the most important things that we can do as a contractor is help clients understand what they're coming to us for. And so the first thing on the list for me is to make sure that you give clear direction on what's needed and what you're trying to accomplish. If you just go to an architect, work with that architect, and give them the specs of what's needed, and then that architect passes it off to a general contractor, as many times it does happen. If the general contractor doesn't know the space, he's not going to know the reason why you need 8 beds, the reason why you need 10 beds or 6 bathrooms or what have you. You have to have worked in this industry to know why certain things are needed. Because again, if they're not connected in this space, then it's going to be very, very hard for them to understand what it is that they're building for. And so that's where the experience comes in. The next thing is that once you're signed up, meaning the contracts, make sure to check insurances. And that can come on the construction management side as well. If we do get hired as a construction manager to be a liaison, this is one of the first things that we would check is, hey, what's your builder's risk? What's your comp, your GL, and your umbrella? As it comes in and as you guys are building your businesses, as I've built mine, one of the things that you learn as you're going through everything is to mitigate risk. You're already dealing with older people, and now you're building projects. So we have to mitigate those risks by going and making sure all of these things are checked off as far as that the coverages are there and that nothing is lacking, like maybe somebody doesn't have comp. Well, that can go all the way down. So say, for instance, if a subcontractor doesn't have comp, well, the general contractor then takes on that comp. But let's say that the general contractor doesn't have comp. That goes all the way back up to the owner. And so you don't ever want to get into that. You don't ever want to get into that space. So that's why it's very, very important as far as risk mitigation to make sure these insurances are all in good order. The next thing is scheduling along with the bids. You may have a contractor come in and say, hey, this is a 6-month remodel and it's $250,000. Or you could have somebody come in and say, this is a 9-month remodel and it's going to be $200,000. Well, you have to understand that the timeline is there's going to be money in that timeline, and you have to make sure that you're bidding apples to apples. When I bring Brian into this, he'll attest to this. You can get a contractor very, very cheap if you give him a long enough timeline. But that's not what you guys need either. And so we need to make sure that when we're bidding these things and that we're doing the takeoffs, that you guys understand that, you know, time is money. And if you guys aren't open for another 3 months or 4 months, that's money that was allocated towards that, and now you're taking on your holding costs. So that's where the renovations become very, very costly. I think I touched on this in the first point. Verify that the GC has experience in the RAL space. I can't hammer down this enough. You have to make sure, because again, if you're not understanding the scope and actually what's needed in working with the city and the states and the Department of Public Health, the ADA codes and all of that, you're going to get lost in the project, and it's going to end up rolling uphill and costing you guys money. So you have to make sure that the person that you go with has worked in that residential space, and that they understand everything that goes along with it. The next is something that kind of goes on the architect, but it's something where we have to make sure that we give a clear direction, and that's create a livable space. And that's, you know, motion controlled lights, faucets, perimeters to walk around if you've got the space, meaning having no dead ends. This is something that we deal a lot in memory care in our bigger facilities. I remember building one, and they were, and again, like I said, this is a bigger space, but they were built in a figure 8 just so that there was no dead ends that any of these memory care people could walk in, you know, and no floor height changes or steps, because again, we're all about mitigating risk and making sure that these things don't come up, because it's just not the space that you guys want to play in. And these are all things that the GC should be able to help you guys with. And so I'm going to kick it off to Brian, and he's kind of got a case study for you guys. And so, Brian, I'll kick it off to you.
Sounds good. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Brian Greeley. I do some of the business development for the Bridgewater Group. And basically on this slide, what I'll do is I'll touch on these points here listed on your screen, and then I'll give you an example of our first go at it with a potential RAL client. So the first point being initial evaluation. What do we have? What kind of space are you looking at? Is it commercial? Is it residential? Do you have floor plans? Do you have pictures? All of this information gives us the opportunity to figure out whether or not this layout or this space will give you guys the business that you're looking for. So to kind of go back to what Kevin was saying, giving your GC a clear direction on what you're looking for is vital, because the limited information we may or may not have allows us the opportunity to dictate whether or not we can give you guys what you want based on the budget you have. So going into cost control and budgeting, that's the same kind of point there. So I had been reached out to by a guy in Ohio who found a commercial space, relatively small, I'd say 4,500 or 4,600 square feet, that he wanted to convert into an assisted living home. We quickly figured out that we weren't able to attain the amount of beds that he was looking for based on the layout of the space. So we got a floor plan from him, and basically what happened was he originally walked the space with an architect, and basically the guy threw him round numbers, kind of scared him a little bit, didn't really give him a good feeling about the space, and was kind of confused because he didn't have any real construction knowledge. So when he reached out to me, he said, "Hey, Brian, you know, I walked the space and I didn't really feel comfortable with what he was saying. So I said, okay, let's throw all that out. Send me everything you have. We'll dissect it. We'll go through what you're looking for, and we'll try to make the space work." So within his budget, we're trying to make sure that we can keep the cost down to the point where his ROI is within where he's trying to be successful. The next point here of knowledge of states and public health officials and regulations. This is obviously key because every state has different regulations, different red tape, you know, and having the ability to work nationwide has also afforded us a lot of opportunity to have experience with different municipalities, state to state. The next point here with the architects and engineers, we do have a base based on previous knowledge, like Kevin alluded to before. With over 100 years of experience, we have over 100 years worth of connections and people we know. So understanding and knowing how to deal with architects is a big part of how we can make this work for you guys. So this particular situation where we knew that we couldn't give this guy 10 beds based on the current layout, even though the architect kind of scared him, we were able to achieve success in that he understood that he wasn't able to use this space for what he was looking for. So the next point, alleviating the headaches, he felt relieved that he knew for sure that he couldn't do it based on the budget that we provided. So the first step to that process was, okay, let's evaluate it. I went through with our director of construction and estimation, and we quickly figured out that based on the layout, his first scenario didn't work, but we were able to think outside the box and come up with another scenario where he might be able to still use the space. So what we did was we went back and we drew up a plan to subdivide the space into 4,000-foot apartments that were handicap accessible. So I ran down the whole cost budget with him. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to justify the cost of that particular project. But without spending too much time and resources, we were able to evaluate it and give him the understanding that, okay, you know what, this space may not be for me, but let's go find another space that will work. So that's kind of part of what we can offer. If you're unsure of the current space, let us use our knowledge to figure out if we can make this work. And then we're able to generate a budget first within, you know, plus or minus 10% of what the cost may or may not be. Then we take the next step forward, get plans developed, and then we can move on from there. So even though this is a different scenario than what the program kind of puts you guys through, commercial spaces can also be used in this instance. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that whether it's a residential home or a commercial building, we can be of service to you guys in multiple facets. And then obviously the next slide here will have all of my contact information. Feel free to reach me anytime, whether it's text message, email, phone call. I pride myself on getting back to people in a very timely manner. So yeah, like if you guys need anything at all, whether it's just discussing a current space or if you have a set of plans that you want us to bid on, you know, we can be of service in multiple ways.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. So there has been a couple of questions that have come in, and if you guys have questions throughout, go ahead and let me or bring those in, and I'll bring them to the guys. So a couple of things. So you guys are a general contractor and you can do the projects yourself,
Absolutely.
but you can also manage the projects as well. And so is there something as far as like a line that gets crossed across the country where that stops, where like you would only be able to help people with managing their projects on one part of the country, but you would be able to actually man the projects on another part? Or how does that work with you guys?
It all depends. It depends, it depends with what we're tasked to do. Sometimes, we may just want to do the oversight because that's what the person is asking us to do. Hey, I need somebody, just at one point of contact of doing this. And then some people may be on maybe their 30th building. They've got another, construction or renovation going on 3 of their buildings, and then they want a couple of different GCs. They want somebody to oversee that as a construction manager. So for us, you can slice the pie a couple different ways, and that's why we offer it. Again, with the initial evaluation and the project analysis and stuff like that, that kind of helps us form the relationship and understand what the client's needs are in that particular instance. It goes by case basis.
Yeah, that's what I figure, especially being national. There's so many different levels here. So that goes back to you guys. Anybody who's asking me a specific question about costs or things like that, Brian's information is here. He's very good at getting back to you guys quickly. I have firsthand experience with that. He understands what you guys need. He's already worked with some of you and the projects, and even interesting projects, in that somebody came to him who wanted to do an RAL, but they wanted to do it in not a residential space, but a commercial space, a smaller commercial space. So he's happy to work with you guys. They're familiar with commercial, they're familiar with residential. So he can help you. If you have a specific question about cost, it's probably going to depend on where you're located. So please reach out to him directly for those questions. Now, this is an interesting question, and I had seen this because I had looked you guys up initially when we started talking, and there is other Bridgewater builder groups, correct? And are those you, or are they separate ones?
Yeah, they would be separate ones.
Okay.
If I go back to just kind of the beginning, we have a very, I guess, kind of unique looking site, meaning that this exact layout is the exact page that you're going to come upon. It's going to say, let's build the future. It's going to have this pre-roll rolling in the background. And so everything that we have is conducive, and we try and keep our branding the exact same way. So yes, and to be quite honest, when I was going through and naming the company, if you look at the bottom right, we are the bridgewatergroup.co. I think that was just a decision from our webmaster. He likes to be forward thinking, and he's like, Kev, I think that .co is the thing you should go with, or .io for an internet company. And I was like, okay, fine. So yes, long story short, there is other Bridgewater groups, but we would be the one, and our typeface would all be what you guys are looking at now, as kind of the block letters, the blue background, and the safety yellow. And again, ours is .co, as you can see, and that's the best way to get a hold of us.
Perfect. Bring it back to that contact page for us real quick.
Yes.
And then, so there's more specific questions about where you guys are at, but here's some great questions. If they wanted you to do an initial assessment of a property, can you tell them a roundabout of what it would cost, even if they haven't bought the property yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we did with Greg in Ohio. So he was interested in purchasing the space and wanted to find out if he could fit it out to a 10-bed facility within the budget that he had. So what we did was we don't like to chase a number per se. We like to kind of assess it, go after it, figure it out what we think it's going to be, and then we'll come to you with a rough budget number first. And then if it's within something that you're interested in, what we'll do is we'll take it a step further, and we'll take that next step to getting you guys a detailed proposal to actually complete the job if it's something you're interested in. So that's what we did with Greg. Was I went through the floor plan. We came up with a budgetary cost within 10% up or down, and then we presented it to him before we went into the real nuts and bolts, so to speak, which would be an actual proposal to complete the job. So yes, we can provide budgetary costs based on existing conditions to give you guys what you're looking for.
And you did that based off of pictures he had sent you and floor plans and things like that. It's not like you went and looked at the actual space, because he was in Ohio and Brian, you're in New York, correct?
Yes. So yeah, we had a floor plan of the existing building along with photos from the listing. And that was enough for us to go through it and put together an intelligent budget to give him an understanding of what he's getting into before we move forward with something more substantial.
And what would you say the turnaround time for you to evaluate that property was, and anybody else's property?
It depends on how much information you have. If what you had there was just that floor plan and the pictures, it really doesn't take much for us to turn it around. I don't want to speak out of turn and speak for my estimating department per se, but we got it back to him fairly quickly. It's not a process that takes weeks, but something that we can get back to you. But we're also very good with giving you the time frame as far as, okay, you came to me on Monday, I'll talk with my estimating department and my director, and then we'll come back to you and say, hey, John, we'll get it back to you on this date. We'll have you that budgetary cost, and then we'll talk from there.
Yep.
And so, do you guys charge for your consultation?
Not the initial, no.
Okay,
we
so
haven't gotten into that. If we go further into the project, that's probably something that'll just be wrapped into the pricing.
Perfect. And then there's a couple.
You'll have that budget. Yeah. What's that?
You'll have it within your budget that you give them.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Great.
Yep. Yeah, because it's not much time to go through that cost analysis. Now, if we go through 30 homes, we might have to stop and say, hey, okay, let's talk about this. If we get sent 30 of those things, then we're gonna say, okay, hang on, we've got to get down to some billable hours here.
Absolutely, totally understandable. And so here's some more specific questions. Someone's asking if you have done a project in Colorado. What's your experience in Colorado?
Yeah, actually, we've done a tilt-up building for, believe it or not, a grow operation. So that was our experience in Colorado. Was a tilt-up building there. But as far as a RAL building, no.
Okay. What about eco-friendly designs from architects?
Yeah, I mean that would be part of that grow operation. They were trying to do solar. They were trying to do big HVAC systems. As far as evacuating air and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean I think that's maybe the question, or they may be talking about 8-inch walls with certain type of insulation in it, certain type of rated windows. But I mean that's all stuff that comes into the construction and design process. But none of that's ever an issue. But I wasn't sure if that was a residential or commercial question.
Perfect. And do you guys, I have two people asking about, oh no, it's the same person. So Houston. So have you done residential in Houston, Texas? And are you familiar with the Houston code?
Yes, we're familiar with Texas, not necessarily Houston. And we haven't done anything residential in Houston. But Texas we're familiar with. Brian's very familiar in Texas.
Yeah, I've actually I've completed quite a few jobs in Houston itself. It was for pet hospitals, so I know a lot of people down in that area. So again, it's really it's not a matter of do we know the area, but it's also how many friends do you have in that area too that help you out as far as local knowledge and things of that nature. So we have a lot of. I came from a national contractor before I signed on with Bridgewater, So along with their contacts and my contacts, we have a lot of friends throughout the country that really, alleviate those problems and help us get to the bottom of, any issues that we might arise.
Perfect. And so do you guys have pictures that you could send people of examples of things that you've done if they reach out to you directly, like as
Absolutely.
specifically assisted living or residential assisted living projects?
Absolutely.
All right. So Forrest, go ahead and reach out to Brian. Brian's information's here right now on the screen, and they can send you more specific things for sure. Do you have sample layouts for RAL homes? So that's interesting.
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's going to be based on the bones of the house. As much as I'd love these things to be cookie cutter, they just never are. Unless somebody's on the line that wants to work with us to, go ahead and build 30 of these things, then, they're all going to be different.
Right, and he's mainly talking about new construction, doing a new construction project. And I can tell you, Forrest, they both have very good experience with looking at a space and being able to lay it out for you beforehand. They also are familiar with doing design builds, and that helps you design everything and make sure you have it in the correct specs and everything, and getting costs around that design specifically. So I think they would be really good to get you some pictures and get you some estimates too. So reach out to Brian.
Absolutely.
Where would you base your pricing in estimation? Average national cost or more location specific?
Everything is going to be location specific. If you're talking about doing a couple of these in Kansas City, you're going to get Kansas City pricing. If you're talking about doing a couple of these in LA, you're going to get LA pricing. Everything about real estate is location, location, location. And so, we couldn't bring our Chicago pricing down to Texas. It's not going to work. So we're going to have to go down, and we're going to have to get our hands dirty in that and work with those subs down in Texas. Where if you're in Chicago, you're going to get Chicago pricing. It's just the way that real estate is located. So that's kind of the long answer to that, is that every city and every major metropolitan will all have a different pricing system. And Brian will attest to it, because he's probably got the highest pricing in the country there in New York. So
yeah.
And so that brings me, you said LA. Do you guys operate in California?
Yes. Yeah, we would offer construction management in California. And that would be the oversight of the project. That would be the design build of the project, and going with it from there.
Perfect. And so are there cities and states that you prefer to work with, or you have best connections in, or do you feel like you have a pretty good base nationally?
We have a pretty good base nationally. Yeah, okay. There's nothing. There's some spaces. Obviously, when you get into West Virginia, you might not have great coverage, right? So you're gonna maybe pull some subs that are close on the border to Virginia or something like that, But those are all things that anybody has to deal with when you're dealing with some of those states. South Dakota, Nebraska's a tough one as well, but we've all dealt with those before, and it's just something that you work through.
So basically what you're saying, and this is another question that came up, you have a network of vetted contractors and subcontractors that you've overseen, and you know them well. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Jay, that answers that question.
And regardless of anything, it's always our oversight. It's always our superintendent. It's always our foreman. And so that's where we have the control of the project. It's always us with the scheduling. It's always us with making sure that any of the like I said, the insurances are taken care of, and the pay apps are taken care of, and you understand what's going through with the pay apps, if this thing is something that goes into title or goes into escrow or whatnot. Those are all of the things that we bring to the table as far as the project management.
Perfect. And once again, if you guys have specific questions about timelines, I mean, you guys can't really estimate timelines without knowing a project
scope.
and where it's at. And
The
things
scope,
like that.
yeah.
So
Yep.
Kelly, I'm serious. He'll answer you really quick. So if you want to reach out to Brian, send him an email. Send him an email right now, and I'm sure he'll be able to get you going and answer your question really, really quickly. So if you have specifics, please, please, please reach out because they're really great about getting back to you. Do you have a checklist for vetting GCs? So he did go over some of those checklists here. If you weren't here for that part, I'm going to send the recording out tomorrow. I also have this little brochure in here if you want to download into the handouts tab down here. So, and if you have more checklists, if you don't want to go with them specifically, they may be able to help you and guide you in what you should look for in your specific area too. So reach out to Brian. He's going to be able to answer those questions for you.
Yeah, and Molly, one more thing that I wanted to do, and it's not a self-promotion thing, but I think that it could help people and kind of put a name to a face. I didn't have a camera on my PC at work, so that's why I'm not up in this. But we do have a YouTube channel for my carpentry company. I think we have like 3,200 subscribers or something like that. So it's a reasonably good channel. But my carpentry company is Mitchell Acoustical, MITCHELL ACOUSTICAL. We do little tips and tricks, whether it's drywall, whether it's hanging doors, doorknobs, door hardware, door closers. We do FRP, which is that panel that you put on in bathrooms. Just little tips and tricks here and there. And again, you guys can put a name to a face. I think we've been doing it for maybe about 4 years. So again, that's my carpentry company. Just in case anybody wants to just kind of go out and do a little bit of digging on who I am and what I do as well. That's my YouTube channel.
Yeah, so Kevin, it's Mitchell, MITCHELL Acoustical on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay, so I just put that in the chat, you guys. So if you want to look at that and be able to write that down, I put down exactly what he wrote in the chat. And There's another question that came in. What is the advantage over a more local competent contractor? No competitor specifically in mind, but what is the advantage of using a national company versus a local?
The national company, in my mind, and Brian, I'll let Brian take the reins on this after me. The national company can handle the volume. I know, Molly, that you guys try and preach to people the rule of threes, I think. And so when you start getting into this and when you start growing, building that relationship with that general contractor is crucial. And so if you can hand off 3 projects to somebody at a time, those local contractors may not be able to handle those. And so that's where kind of our value add is that's the way that we take these things. Like I had shown you, and quite honestly, we just punch listed a 5-story hotel today. So we actually finished that. I think that's on my Facebook page, but that's what you get is that you'll have more, you'll be able to do more with a national contractor because they'll have the ability to scale and grow with you as you scale and grow your RAL business. And Brian, like I said, Brian can kind of attest to that as well, coming from a national GC.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just because, I might have the people in that podunk town that you might be looking for that you might not be able to find on your own. Nationals come, they have their pros and cons, obviously, but, again, reaching out to us and finding out what we have in that particular area is never going to hurt. But sometimes, you don't want 2 guys in a pickup truck doing your job because it might take, as Kevin alluded to earlier, yeah, the price might look good on paper, but it might take you 6 weeks longer than the project really should have. So, and also, I don't know if we really mentioned it before, we have an ability to self-perform quite a few trades, which allows us the opportunity to keep costs down by traveling our own men to do these jobs. So in order to be competitive in those fields, that's what I've noticed the difference between this contractor and my last, we didn't have the ability to self-perform. So we were kind of always at the mercy of our own, of the subcontractors that we knew in the area. So we weren't able to cost control as much because we didn't have control of the labor. So I think with the knowledge of the database that I have, the database that these guys have, we can get you guys the best possible product. And also, that based on the pictures you saw too before, the kind of workmanship and craftsmanship that goes into each job.
And this is an interesting question that just came in. So I know that we actually did recently talk about this. I think Kevin, me, you, and Brian, the last time we talked about this. Do you often do upgrade projects? So in other words, like if somebody bought a project and it needed to be updated while there's still residents living in the facility, but during COVID, so you guys recently weren't able to go into some facilities because of COVID, right? So that kind of changes things, right?
Correct. Yeah. So now, okay. So basically, we had at the tail end of 2019, we were closing about 12, and I mean closing out. We were closing out about 12 assisted living facilities, and those ranged anywhere from, I would say, 5,000 square foot renovations to, gosh, maybe 20 to 24,000. I don't know the bed numbers per se. But we were able to, those were closing out, and obviously we get into February, people start chattering, everything else like that. So we've got to say, okay, what do we do? March 16th, everything was shut down. Well, now they're coming back to us, and they came back to us probably 3 months ago, and they said, what are your guys' guidelines? And we came up and we obviously stuck with CDC, but our thing is that, like, okay, we've got the most susceptible group out there that we need to protect, and we can't be the people to bring it in. So we set aside guidelines, we sent it over to the ownership group, and the ownership group said, okay, fine, we're okay with this. We're going to add some legal speak because we've got to run it past our lawyers. But what you've given us is good enough for us to start wanting to open up some of these projects. And we're actually going to be, I think, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, kind of the test kit for getting back to start working in these facilities. Some of the stuff that we're talking about here is obviously everybody gets checked in the morning. You have those 5 questions that everybody's asked. Have you traveled? Have you been sick? Da, 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 da. But we're going one step further. For the subs to get on the job while we're going to work inside of the actual facility with people, you've got to have a test at least a week before. We'd like it to be 3 days, but we're never going to get that because of how long sometimes these tests take. The next thing is the temperature check. Then those 5 questions: have you traveled? Da 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 da. Then we're going to give them a mask. Everybody's going to get a brand new mask every single day. I've got a buddy who's actually in sales, pharmaceutical sales, that we've got a great hookup for. Everybody's going to get a mask, and we're having to buy 10,000 masks at a time. The next thing is to set up the parameters for where we have to go, is that we have to separate hallways. So if these hallways are 8 feet wide, we've got to put a partition all the way through. So, well, Kevin, how do you do that? Well, and this is going to sound crazy, but we've got to go overboard for these people, and it's get yourself in a Tyvek suit, put your partition wall in the middle of the ceiling, and then pop out those ceiling tile, cut new ceiling tile, put them on both sides of the wall now, so that you've got a relatively good seal. And then, then you could take off your Tyvek suits, then put a negative air machine out the window of any facility that we're working in. So long answer, I know it's exhausting, but we have to take these precautions to be able to get these projects back off the ground. And so the project owners were okay with this. Like I said, they had to enter in their legal jargon, which is fine, but that's what they went with us to say, okay, we can start opening these things back up to construction.
And in some of those smaller places, what were the steps that you guys took to make sure that it wasn't too disruptive to the people that still lived there? How did that work?
Well, that is a tough one. I think, you know, as much as you don't want to say, like, you're still tearing up the floor, right? So you've got a certain amount of time each day where you can disrupt residents, whether that's TV time, whether that's feeding time, what have you. You've got to take advantage of those windows that are given, and each facility is different. You know, you could probably start at 7:30, but you got to be out of there by 5:30 or something like that, right? Or you may notify them, hey, we got a core in here and we got to, you know, cut all this concrete out because we're running new drains. We're going to cut for probably about 2 hours. Well, you try and schedule that to say, okay, well, it's going to rain this entire week. You say, okay, is there anything else we can do to say, okay, maybe we take these people on a trip to, and again, this is a bigger facility, but I'm just trying to give the example, but they may go take them on a trip while you're trying to cut concrete for 4 to 6 hours, you know, because you can't cut it for 3 times in 3 days. So you try and work with the facility, and the first thing in any type of project, whether as residents, hotel remodels, or anything, is you make nice with the head nurse because she's the one controlling it, and the facility manager that's actually on site. Those are the people that are going to make or break your projects for us. That's just kind of the general contractor view on that. So I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, I think that was a very detailed answer. Absolutely. So unless anybody else has any other questions, that was my last question there. So Brian and Kevin, thank you so much for being here. If you guys have specific questions, everybody who's watching this recording right now, here's all the contact information. Please reach out to Brian. I'm sure they can help you answer any question, even if they're not able to get you the answer you want. They'll definitely answer your question. So thank you guys for being here tonight, and I will see you all at the next one.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.